I'm gonna do something a little different here. Uh, I mean, I don't really expect anyone to listen to this, especially since it's quite a few years after it was on the air. But I've had some time as of late, and uh, when I have free time, I tend to do some binge watching on shows I never caught, or at the time never had an interest in watching until I just get the nerve to do it, or curiosity gets to me. Uh, Probably a couple months ago, I started watching Breaking Bad, and I finished that. But there's not really much to question or wonder about for that. So, the one that I just recently started watching, and I just finished as of, I'd say 10 minutes ago, was I started watching Lost. I tell you what, Netflix is a wonderful thing. Not sponsoring them. They don't sponsor me, obviously. But, just wanted to say that. But, yeah, I just got done watching it, and I'm one of the people that I can take spoilers and I can know what's going to happen before it happens and be fine. And so while I was watching the episodes and everything, I was doing a lot of research to kind of get ahead of things, because I know the end episode was a big controversy about leaving it open-ended or what have you, or people were mad because they didn't understand it. I have to say, after watching it, I actually felt personally, and I might be just out there, but I felt personally there was more answers given than some people caught hold of. I mean, I did have questions. I mean, before I started recording this, I had written down uh, a few questions that maybe if someone has answers to, would like to leave in comments, because I'm kind of curious about myself. One major one. So, just so it said, there will be spoilers here if you haven't watched it. But I live by the spoiler rule of, uh, by now, spoilers shouldn't take place, because it's been, how long since it's been out? What, 5 years now? Now that we're in 2015? By now, even myself, if someone wanted to talk about it, it wouldn't ruin it for me. But that's me. So I just throw that out there, just for the those that don't follow the rules of spoilers as I do, um, where most people say that for spoilers it's what is it, 2 weeks after the show end, the episodes end, that you can talk about it. Oh no, there's a separate video of this director and a couple directors and producers and music people and movie people. You'll have to look it up, but they all sit down and discuss spoilers, because they've been kind of getting irritated about people jumping on about it, and when they post stuff, and they all came together and made a separate set of rules, which isn't canon or something you have to live by, but I agree with it. So if you want to look it up, so be it. But not to get off into the whole spoiler talk. Back to what our original topic was that I had way more answers to any of the questions people had, or even that were supposedly left open-ended in the show, than I did questions. The series was awesome. I do have to say that I don't know if it's just me being where I don't really like change, but like being there 6 seasons, I think by the fourth season, it might have been even the fifth, I was really not as interested in it, I should say, just because they changed everything up, and it almost made me wish they would have stuck it to them staying on the island, or not the island, but the beach and everything, and some of the stories, they kind of went convoluted. I mean, personally, I don't want to get any hate for this, but I couldn't stand Kate, and it seemed like they wanted to draw the story out for her so much, and it just got to a point where I'm not a person that normally does this, but I'd actually skip through her episodes where she had her backstory. I remember one particular episode where like 90% of it was her backstory. And at this point, we already all knew it. We knew about what she did. We knew about everything else. We knew about her getting her first love killed. You know, so the backstory of her running away really didn't really have a bearing for me. And not only that, but as I discussed with my wife, she didn't watch it, but I know she wouldn't. But they made her one of the most irritating characters in the show to me. I honestly thought that Sawyer would be more in mind of that, but actually she was worse. And this is nothing against females or anything, because I liked most all the characters. And like I said, or I didn't say, but one of the things I was telling my wife about was that one thing that was amazing about this show was the fact that it took people that you would hate. I mean, Sawyer. They had him do things that even my wife, just watching me watch it while I had headphones on, said, "Wow, he looks like he's a jerk." And I said, "Yeah, for the most part he is." I said, "Every once in a while he does things that are nice, but for the most part he's a jerk." But they did things that it'd make you change your mind about how they are. I like Juliet, for example. I never thought I'd actually turn to like her, or even Ben Linus. I never thought I'd turn to like him. But it was excellent how they did it, to where I did actually care. I did actually like those people. But Kate was one of those ones I did not. I mean, as I told my wife, I said, they made her a person that she caused more problems than help. And, you know, I felt they wanted to try to focus her story so much, and yeah, it has a part, but not really, in my mind. I mean, I might be totally out there, but this is how I viewed it. Uh, and it just irritated me, the fact that they kept having her do something, the same thing, over and over again throughout the whole series, and come back to these people and say, "I'm sorry," for like the hundredth time, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's okay." No, no. You, what's the common saying? "Fool me once, shame on me," or "shame on you." Whichever it is, I forget what it says. "Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you." I think that's what it is. No one lives by those rules when it comes to her, and that's what really bothers me. And it kind of comes to full effect at an episode in season 6, where she follows Sawyer, and he's just like, "Get away from me," after he tells her not to follow him. And not to get off on a tirade about Kate, but just to kind of get into the characters. Um, that's about the only one I really had a problem with. I like Saeed, and I didn't think I would. I'm not racist or anything, just as I said, but uh, I thought he was a really cool guy. The thing that bothered me was how they had it end with him. Um, you know, he did a lot of terrible things in the military, and he did terrible things in his life, and but on the island, for the most part, he was one of the most sanely minded, I guess it is. He knew what needed to get done, and he did it. He was the guy you went to, and I liked him. But the problem was, for me, was in season 6, either halfway through the season or at the beginning, I can't recall, even though I just watched it. My memory's terrible, just so you know. But they had him almost turn dark, darker than normal, to where he really didn't care about anybody. And even though they tried to explain it away, like, they kind of gave you the feel. They didn't actually say it, but they kind of gave you the feel like he was working as a spy against the Man in Black. There was things he did that didn't really fall into place to say that. I mean, what he did in the temple, no, that wasn't how he normally was, and they really didn't give him the retribution that he deserved in my mind. But I'm going to jump on a couple of these topics here before I drag this out too long. I already see I've been talking for 10 minutes about nothing, randomness. I'll go into the questions first, and then or the answers first, and I'll go into the questions. One of the questions I saw people asking was about people who were missing at the church at the last episode, the end. I mean, I think they talked about, what was it, Walter, and I can't remember Michael, talking about those two not being there, and I'm sure Nikki and whatever her boyfriend was, and Alana and Lapidus and Miles, why they were missing. Well, from what I understand, and it's not even what I understand, it's what they tell you at the end, is that people created this place so they could find each other, so they could move on. And the three that were named here, like I mentioned, well, Alana, Lapidus, and Miles, for example, they really didn't come into play too much. Where not everybody was linked to somebody there. The only one that kind of confuses me is Eleanor's. Is it Eleanor's? Eleanor's Daniel Faraday. Why he wasn't involved, other than he was like within that group where he didn't really belong. Because they had. I remember they had that redhead girl, Charlotte, come and find Charlie and wake him up. And so she obviously was in this same area. But I think it came down to who was originally on the island, who originally, and granted she was as a child, but who crash landed with them. That's who I think was involved. As far as Michael and Walter, Walter might not be dead at this point. I mean, they showed baby Aaron, so that one kind of confuses me a little bit, but so be it. But Michael really kind of stayed aloof to everybody. He was friends with Jen, but I think all he did didn't work for wherever they're going to move on. And in fact, as they stated in one of the episodes in season 6, like I said, I'm not a person that can tell you this is the name of the episode, in this spot, but if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. Hurley talks to him on the island after he's dead, after the ship blows up, and it's finally revealed what all the whispers are that people have been hearing in the woods about that they're basically lost souls that aren't able to move on. And Michael's one of them. And I think he is locked there. I think one of the things that they kind of mentioned at one point might be true to a degree, where they said the island is basically hell. Where I don't agree it is, but I do think it is a place that keeps people if they have nowhere else to go, if you know what I'm saying. Because they have all the spirits there that cannot move on, and that's why Michael isn't in the church because he is stuck on the island still. He's already dead, but due to his actions, he can't leave. You know, that brings a good question into about Benjamin. He was stayed outside of the church. He was invited in, but that's where one of those things that you don't know what all took place. He kind of did do a retribution kind of thing, where you could say Michael did too, with trying to help them with sacrificing himself. But he really didn't sacrifice himself because he didn't save anybody. He just stayed there and wanted to get blown up. The only thing he did was tell Jin to leave. But in this show, you can gain your retribution in minor details, but we don't know from when Jack finally accepted his death until, you know, that point, how long it's been. Obviously, his dad, Christian, which I didn't catch the whole Christian shepherd thing until that one. I'm not Christian, but I thought that was interesting that was brought up, and I never caught it until it was brought up. Well, what I don't understand, or what we don't understand, is how much time has passed in between. So we don't know, being that Ben Linus is now Hurley's second in command of protecting the island, what he did in between that time that would possibly counteract his bad that he did. So you don't know. I mean, because he was invited in, but he said he had things he needed to do. One thing I found that was really interesting was when it came down to Locke's dad. You know, we saw multiple things happen in the series, and we in fact saw at one point where Sawyer killed him. And so, obviously that's where he's at. There, you know, why he's in this part, and dare I say, limbo stage, where all of them are at. But, not at the island. The island isn't limbo. For those people, I'm supposing it kind of is for the souls that can't leave, that are dead, like Michael and all the Whispers in the Woods. But as far as the main characters that you see in the church, the island wasn't limbo for them. That was all real. I mean, they've even confirmed that with developers or writers or what have you. But I found it real interesting what happened with his dad. You know, he treated everyone so bad. He caused so much trouble, so many problems. He was only about himself. He never did anything that was good for anybody. And what he got turned into was exactly what he turned Locke into, a cripple. But even worse yet was that what got him into most of his situations was his ability to talk. And he caused a lot of trouble with that. He caused Sawyer's parents' death. He did basically the same con game that Sawyer had done. And, you know, all his talk to Locke to get him to like him and, you know, accept him and give him his kidney, my God. You know, it was very prophetic for the fact that in this limbo-like stage, he is now unable to walk, like he had done to Locke. Not to rhyme there. And not only that, but he can't talk. And he's just kind of like in a catatonic stage. I found it very interesting that that was his kind of punishment, and he obviously did not have an opportunity to move on, because he was stuck in that place, the nursing home, and that's where he was going to be. I found that very interesting that they actually did that. I don't know how many people caught the whole being in the not walking stage and losing his voice on it. Now, one other answer I wanted to jump on was Jacob's cabin. I don't think it was his cabin to begin with. I mean, I know Alana, I might have her name wrong. Alana and her group came and said that this was Jacob's cabin and it needed to be burnt because someone else was using it, and that there was that ring around it, the ashes. I don't think it was his at all. Because what brings me to that thought was, first off, the ashes. And I don't necessarily think the ashes were there to keep the man in black, also known as the smoke monster, out. I think it was to keep him in. I guess. Because now the more I think about it, well, we don't know how long the ring's been broken. But, every time that they go to that cabin, Jack's dad, Christian, is there. And he claims he can talk for Jacob. But one thing they mentioned is that statue, which I have questions about, but it really has no purpose to know. But the statue they mentioned is Jacob's house. And he even says that himself. That's where he lives, and you're only allowed in if you're invited. So I'm to assume that obviously he didn't move into that statue after the ship crashed into it, because that wouldn't have been the time to do it. I think he was there the whole time. And I think that's where his house was to begin with, outside of the cave where he lived with his mother and brother. But yeah, I think that the cabin was actually all along his brother's, the smoke monster, the man in black's cabin. I think that's where he was kind of kept, because that's where Claire had went to, and they found her sitting there, and obviously she had been affected by Jacob's brother. So, yeah, I think that the cabin actually isn't at all Jacob's. I think it was his. But I'm going to jump on a couple questions I had before this drags out too long. I see it's almost been half an hour, 23 minutes. But something that bothers me is the ashes. They never really mentioned anything about it. Why that's such a problem to the smoke monster, other than he apparently is evil incarnate. Um, I know in doing some research and just from knowing this kind of stuff that was it salt rings or whatever it is supposed to protect your house from evil spirits. And there's multiple things, but mostly I know salt was. It might be ashes in some of it, I'm not sure. But I know as far as folklore goes and some religious practices, ashes in a ring is supposed to protect you from evil spirits. I don't know if that's where they brought this from. And again, these are my question aside, so if anyone has an answer, please feel free to comment and tell me. But, yeah, they never really mentioned about it, and that's always kind of confused me, other than you just to assume it from knowing how the history is. Now, one thing that did bother me, and this is where I had a question, is Richard he first wanted to live forever, and then as with the curse of living forever, you realize you don't want to. Well, he got that gift, if you remember the story back. I think they did this in season 6 as well. Seems like they really rushed everything in season 6. But, Richard got his... No, that was season 5. Richard got his gift of not being able to die from Jacob. And Jacob seemed to be the one to be able to do all this stuff, whereas the man in black, also known as Smoke Monster, didn't really seem to ever show any powers like that. He had the powers over death, which I guess is it kind of does tie in, because he was preventing death. But, I don't know. What bothers me is the fact that he wanted to lose this gift that was given by Jacob. But then apparently, due to the fact that the smoke monster threw him in the woods, the next episode, the last, that he lost that gift and he was able to die again. Hence why he started actually aging. He had a gray hair. I'm kind of confused as to how Jacob's brother could make him lose a gift that Jacob gave him himself. Whereas, it seemed like Jacob might have had a little more power than his brother did. I don't know. The other thing that really doesn't make sense is why he never was able to cross the water. They never really say, or why he can't leave the island. Even as him being as a brash kid, you would have thought he would have gotten on a boat and at least tried. So I don't really know with that. One major thing that I'm not really sure about is why they never gave him a name. I mean, it makes it tough for talking about him where it's always Jacob's brother or the smoke monster or the man in black. But why he doesn't have a name, I mean, even kind of the lack of writing, I guess it is, unless I'm missing something, where they just write in there that his mother says, I hadn't even thought of a name for him. It's odd. And even after his, dare I say, adopted mother takes him, that she didn't give him a name, it baffles me. I don't know why they would have done that. But I have one last question, or should I say theory. The dog. I'm curious if at all Vincent was real. I mean, they have all these people that come on the plane. And they all have a purpose. They're all supposed to do something. They're all supposed to be connected to some degree. And somehow this dog survives. And I'm not really sure how. I mean, I know it's a show, and I know some of the stuff you're not going to make sense on. But he was kind of random. He kind of showed up when he felt like it. Excuse me. He, at one point was gone. No one saw him for 3 years. And all of a sudden he came back. And people were like, I don't even know how he's still alive, surviving out here. And another thing is that he never really aged either. I mean, I know you really wouldn't see much in 3 years for a dog, but he didn't look like that young of a dog. You would have thought you would have saw some kind of slowing down. Well, I guess how can you tell? You never really saw him. I mean, out of the whole 6 seasons, you might have saw him 6 times. And then he just randomly shows up at the end when Jack's dying and lays down beside him, where I see people saying that, oh, Vincent died as well. Well, interesting enough, because I saw that comment, I watched to see if they still had him breathing or moving or anything like that. And he was still breathing and moving. And there were people still on the island, so he could have went to them. But I'm kind of curious if he even existed, if he was actually ever real. Because he served purposes that was almost, dare I say, divine. Where what he did caused a situation that needed to resolve something. I.e., Michael needing to bury his hatchet with Locke. Or, Walter going into the woods to try to find Vincent and get stuck in the trees with the polar bear attacking him. And Michael had to go in there and save him and show that he actually cared. Where they were able to connect because of this. You know, I honestly don't think that he was ever real. I think he just served his purpose for kind of a guidance in a way. I mean, I might be speaking kind of biased here because I have dogs and I love them. But, in fact, as you've probably seen, Chewy, my Shih Tzu, is my thumbnail for my channel. But, yeah, I don't think he's really real. I think he was kind of like a spirit in a way. Even in light of where Rose and Bernard were, and they had Vincent, I don't think that they were alive either. I think that they were dead, or made their own little heaven, I guess it would be. Um, One thing I did find interesting, and this is probably where I'm going to end it, but one thing I did really find interesting was that it seemed that Desmond, for the moment that Jack and him met on the football field doing their laps, I just had this feeling, I don't know why, but I had this feeling that he was kind of dare I say, using the last name for Jack, but he was almost like a shepherd, you know. And I don't know why I got that feel, but definitely by the end episode, or should I say episodes, he definitely gave that feel that he was something else. He wasn't, a human being. But maybe I'm off. Sometimes you try to overthink things. But, yeah, if anyone has answers to these, I have them written down here so I can go through them real quick. About the dog not being real, about the ashes, about Richard losing his gift of life from the smoke monster, or why he never had a name for Jacob's brother. I'd be really interested to know. So if you have any answers. The wheel, they explain it. I saw people saying about the wheel that they turn. They explain that in the show. People just must not watch it. But, yeah. It's definitely a good show. I'll probably, because I need to jump on a different series, I'm probably going to jump to Sons of Anarchy. Because people say I actually look like Opie on there, so I guess I'll watch it to see what's going on with that. Even though I know the guy that looks like me dies in season 2. But, I know spoilers. And pardon me if I spoiled it for you for that. But, yeah, this is where I'll end it. And I just wanted to give a little bit of a vlog post about what I've been up to and what I saw. So, have a good night, and I will catch you later.